My name is Matthew Belisario. Welcome to another edition of the Belisario Sonic YouTube channel. Today I'm going to do something a little bit different that I have not seen done on YouTube. I went and searched for the classical music vinyl tag, and I didn't see hardly anything there. There was like nothing that had that particular tag. There's a couple people that had some things on some classical vinyl records, but not really a vinyl tag. So I thought that since we've already got, you know, the jazz, the country, the blues, you know, the regular one, we need to do a classical one. So I figured this would be a good time to do one, because this is one of the most neglected areas of vinyl record. The vinyl record collecting community, if you will, is classical music, because a lot of people just don't listen to classical music anymore. It's kind of a shame. But this is one of the areas where you can find probably still the best deals with records, used records, because a lot of times you can go to thrift stores, even used vinyl record stores, and a lot of times in the back somewhere they've got like a used classical selection back there, and a lot of times they're $5 and under, and a lot of them haven't even been played. They're like brand new. So I've got about 200 albums in the classical music genre, and I started listening to classical music. It wasn't until later, probably till my late 20s, that I started listening to classical music. I grew up on rock music, so wasn't that familiar, with the exception of the big Beethoven pieces that you hear on commercials and stuff like that. I wasn't very familiar with classical music at all. So I started buying CDs, used classical CDs, and became very familiar with a lot of different classical composers. And it's just grown and grown since then. I probably have 500 CDs of classical music, and again, about 200 records. So I think this would be a good introduction for those of you out there that maybe haven't, thought about collecting vinyl classical music, that maybe this will inspire you to kind of start investigating. So here I came up with 19 questions. And again, this is one of those things where classical music, there's so many different subgenres that you can go into the different periods. You can go into the different types of instrumentation. So you can go to the symphonies, you can go to chamber music, quartets. You can go into the concertos, piano concerto, violin concerto. It's almost endless. You can probably come up with 100 questions for different types of classical music. But I've got it down to 19. So I'll start here with those. The first one is your favorite classical artist and your relation with classical music. So I just kind of gave you a little bit of a background on my relation with classical music when I started listening to it, things like that. But I will also say that classical music requires more of your intellectual attention. And so I think that's also another reason why people aren't that easily drawn to it, because it takes effort to sit down and listen to it. It's not something that has a repetitive beat to it over and over like a rock song, where you can kind of get into the groove or whatever, and it kind of draws you in very easily. Classical music, it requires effort. There's different movements, and it can take you on a journey and change tempo and have a reoccurring theme that comes back around later, but it doesn't drive it into your head over and over like modern music does. So it takes some effort to sit down and to listen to it and to see what the composer's doing. And takes a lot of effort and a lot of musical expertise to compose these pieces, and also to play them, and so many different parts to them a lot of times. So, and you can't hide your musicianship. You have to be a good musician to play classical music. And so I think that that's something that we don't really appreciate maybe sometimes in today's musical world, because we have our computers and we can go and get away with putting down a drum loop, drum tracks, things like that. And you can be an okay guitar player, an okay keyboard player, and you can compose things and kind of get away with not being a good musician. And I play guitar, I play piano, a little bit of percussion, sing, but I would not say that I'm a virtuoso on any of them. So, but with classical music, you have to be, on a different level of musicianship. So I think that's also another thing that I could really appreciate. All right, so my favorite artists would be Vivaldi, Monteverdi, Bach, Mozart, Beethoven, Rachmaninoff. Those would be some of my favorite composers. Second question is the oldest classical record that I own. It would probably be this Gothic era box set that I picked up at a record store $5, like brand new, never been played. But this music here is from the 1160s up to the 1300s. So this is probably some of the oldest pieces that I have on record from the Gothic era. Beautiful music. Again, whenever you sit down and listen to these classical records, you're always going to get just great musicianship. So you can really sit down and appreciate that, no matter what your predominant genre of music that you like listening to is. Because when it comes down to it, this is some of the earliest, the chant music, things like that. It was the earliest type of music that we have record of, because with music notation is not that old. And the monks came up with the original Gregorian music notation, and so that's kind of the beginning of notated music. And so with I think it's classical music is something we really need to go back and get a grip on again, in order to be able to appreciate music, become better musicians, and also to be able to take a lot of that and we can move it over to modern times and incorporate it into our own music. So that's probably my oldest one as far as recorded music goes. The newest classical record in my collection is probably this one by Katya Bunia Tishvili, who plays Rachmaninoff on this record. This is a music on vinyl pressing, brand new. I picked up maybe 3 or 4 months ago. And this is a great sounding record. And Rachmaninoff is one of my favorite composers, and she is a phenomenal piano player. So Piano Concertos number 2 and 3 with the Czech Philharmonic Orchestra. This is a great album, the latest one that I picked up in my classical music collection. Now, another thing that I will say is with a lot of these new pressings, of course, music on vinyl always does a good job, no matter what genre you're buying. But in general, when you buy classical music on vinyl, they're all usually pretty good pressings. You don't get a lot of junk pressings like you'll get in the rock music or even the jazz stuff, where you get a lot of that cheap pressings and stuff like that. Most of the classical musical stuff is usually really done really well. All right, a concerto classical album. So that can be violin concertos, piano concertos, whatever. My favorite one, and one of my favorite records of all time, is this Mozart by Friedrich Gulda. And this guy is one of my favorites piano players, and just is an expert on Mozart. And this is a phenomenal sounding record on Deutsche Grammophon. Piano Concertos number 25 and 27, two of my favorites of Mozart. And this guy plays the piano and basically leads the orchestra from the piano, and it's you can even see this on YouTube. And the guy is a delight. It's a lot of fun to watch him play and to conduct the orchestra almost from his piano. And it's one of my favorite records. So this would be a concerto classical album, piano concerto. All right, a symphonic or a symphony classical album. Of course, tons of them. One of the ones I like listening to, and there's so many good ones, but this Beethoven Eroica is just a great album here. So, Beethoven, of course, probably one of the most popular composers that people are familiar with even today, just because, car commercials and all kinds of other places you'll hear Beethoven. A choral recording classical album. Now, I'm a really big fan of choral music. I love listening to chant, choral music, the masses, things like that. They're just beautiful. And the songwriting, the way that they wrote these pieces with all these different parts and different vocal parts and everything is really phenomenal, and something that you just don't see a lot today. But this Mozart Great Mass in C minor K427 is just a fantastic choral record. So I would recommend this one. A record from a composer that I have the largest collection of. I have a lot of Mozart, a lot of Beethoven, a lot of Vivaldi. So I just picked out one of my favorite Mozart records, which is this Requiem. This is an absolutely phenomenal and haunting recording right here. And you just have to listen to it and sit down and pay attention to it. And it will take you on a haunting journey through this for sure. So I really recommend this record here. All right, next one, a favorite live concert classical record that I own. Again, I love this Frederick Gulda. This is another live. This is a live one here, and it is Deutsche Grammophon pressing. Again, good pressing, nice sound quality, and this is a Mozart K570, 576 sonatas for piano. This is a great record, great live record. A favorite violinist classical album. Well, this is another tough one, but I think one of the ones I would recommend for those of you out there that are, like good audiophile records is this Hilary Han retrospective. 2 LPs, and the first one is a direct to disc recording, and it sounds phenomenal. And so it's kind of a retrospective. She's got Mozart on here. She plays Mark Anthony Turnage, Max Richter, Ralph Vaughan Williams, Schoenberg piece on here, Bach. So a lot of wide range of musical variety here, composers, but the sound quality of this is fantastic. It's a Deutsche Grammophon pressing, and again, a nice gatefold cover. I really recommend this if you're, going to go out and look to pick up a good sounding modern classical record. This would be a good place to start. Can't go wrong with this. All right, the next one is my favorite pianist album. Well, I had to cheat here. I picked one female, one male, even though there's so many great piano players, and I play piano myself. I'm not very good. I'm, good enough to do some basic chord structures and writing my music or recording and things like that. By no means a classical pianist, but I really appreciate the musicianship of Martha Argerich. This is a fantastic record, one of her most famous. This is a reissue on Warner Brothers, and this is a great record. So she's one of my favorites. I have a box set of her on Deutsche Grammophon and another box set of her on Warner Brothers. She's one of my favorite pianists. So as far as female pianists go, she's the top of my list, although I have others that I will talk about here. As far as male pianists, there's so many good ones. You got Vladimir Horowitz, you got there's just a ton of them, but I'm looking at maybe more of a modern pianist that I really dig in, and that's this Denis Trivenoff. Arrival and Departure, or Departure and Arrival, these two different albums here. This guy is a monster. One of the best pianists to come across the classical music scene in years, and the guy is just absolutely fantastic. Here he plays these concertos in Rachmaninoff. And Rachmaninoff's one of my favorite composers, and this guy is just a pleasure to listen to, and you're blown away when you listen to his piano playing, and it's like, yeah, I better hang up my, playing piano, kind of one of those things. But I would recommend both of these albums. Again, the Deutsche Grammophon pressings on these, they're done really well. You don't have to worry about shoddy pressings. You get nice gatefold covers on them. The sound quality's great. So don't be afraid of picking up some of these Deutsche Grammophon records. All right, next. Let me kind of see if I can speed this up a little bit. Favorite conductor album, Leonard Bernstein. This is a great one here. This is the Beethoven Piano Concerto No. 4 in G major. Leonard Bernstein, one of the great composers. You can learn a lot. Go on YouTube, pull up some of his teaching videos on him being a conductor and talking about classical music. You'll learn a ton. Favorite Renaissance period album, that would probably be John Dowland here. If you're plays the lute, one of the great English composers, and great for transposing over to guitars as well. So great album there, John Dowland, Fantasies and Dances for Lute. A favorite Baroque period album, probably gonna be, there's so many good ones, but Antonio Vivaldi, Monteverdi, there's so many good Baroque composers, but this album here is a new album by Sol Gabetta, of her compositions, or the project, her Vivaldi project. And so you got you have 3 vinyl records here. I'm sorry, 2 vinyl records here, and just great music. She's one of the premier cello players in classical music. And again, this is an RCA Sony pressing, but again, really nice, packaging, nice gatefold cover, done really well. So again, with these modern classical pressings, you're getting a good quality with them. They usually are a little bit more money than maybe some of the other genres of music. You'll pay 30, 35 bucks for a lot of these, but again, they're really high quality. All right, a favorite classical record from the modern period, 1750 and onward. That would probably be this Helen Grimaud, another one of my favorite pianists. And I, started buying CDs of her years ago. And this is one of her newest ones called The Messenger. And here she's playing some Mozart, and she's playing Valentin Silverstrauff. Silverstrauff, very modern composer from the 30s. And then, of course, some Mozart pieces here. Again, nice packaging. And she is a fantastic piano player. Again, you listen to these musicians, and for me, I'm just blown away by the level of playing. Their competence, their virtuosity, if you will. But that being said, it's not just being a virtuoso to be the fastest player or the cleverest player, but the most musical player. And if you've ever watched a lot of these different competitions, especially like the Van Cliburn competition for pianists and stuff like that, you'll find a lot of very talented and players that can play very fast, but being musical is another thing altogether, and she's very musical. All right, a classical record that I would recommend someone new to classical music, probably Vivaldi, Four Seasons. That's a good place to start if you've never got into any kind of classical music. Very accessible there. A favorite classical album cover. With classical music, you can find some pretty cool covers. I thought this one was kind of neat. This is a modern pressing of Symphony No. 3, The Sorrowful Songs by Argerich, and a beautiful record. Again, a really nice pressing, gatefold album with a 16-page booklet inside of it. So you get some, pictures inside of it and everything else. But I like this cover a lot. And a little bit more on the mellow side here, but a beautiful symphony here, and a great pressing. All right. A re-release or new issue that I own. This is another one of one of the newer records that I purchased. This is Sokolov, the Salzburg Recital. Again, another fantastic pianist. This is a lot of Mozart and Chopin on this. And again, another nice Deutsche Grammophon pressing, gatefold, beautiful packaging, nice high quality pressing. And this is just a really good album. I mean, you sit down and listen to this again, just the level of musicianship and the musicality, and listen to him play the piano, and it's otherworldly. It really is. All right, a box set that I own. I have several box sets, and again, if you keep your eyes out, you'll find box sets are almost like brand new for 5, 10, 15 bucks. This one's The Great Age of Music, Age of Elegance. And this is a nice box set, and this contains Beethoven, Boccherini, Gluck, Haydn, and Mozart pieces. So again, you can find these used for very inexpensive. Even on eBay, you can still find these for 10 or 15 bucks, like brand new a lot of times, and it can get you into classical music, where you can get kind of an idea of what the different composers are and what they sound like, and kind of find out what you like. The final question is my desert island classical record, and that is definitely going to go to this Frederick Gulda album. this number 25 and 27 of the Mozart. I love this album. This is one of my favorites of all time. It's on 2 records. And again, this guy's phenomenal and one of my favorite records of all time. This is the one that I would definitely take to the desert island with me. So, okay, that's it. Right at 20 minutes there for my classical music vinyl tag 2021. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope that you'll pass it along to other people, and maybe we can see what other people have out there for classical records. All right, take care.